Yo, what's up, guys? It's your boy Franklin here, and today I'm going to talk about PKHeX in 2023. Yes, this is currently up to date with the latest download from projectpokemon.org. If you want to, essentially want to get PKHeX onto your PC, unfortunately, it doesn't work for MacBooks or any Apple-based products. Highly recommend this if you are just tired of, trying to breed Pokemon or make Pokemon from scratch or use other sources like Discord or other people that rely heavily on giveaways. Pretty much, this program is free for everyone to use. Now, in order to get your save file into PKHeX, you got to use a outside source. So that could be Atmosphere. I've heard there are different forms of JKSM. That was for the Nintendo 3DS. I'm not really sure how that would work on Nintendo Switch, but I highly recommend Atmosphere. And unfortunately, I cannot really show you what steps or tools you'll need for that because unfortunately Nintendo and YouTube tend to have a very strict policy in regards to showing essentially breaking terms of service. So it's a little warning if you are not about that life. I suggest turning away. But hey, before you turn away, please like and subscribe. That is the best way to support for free. So again, Project Pokemon, it's free for everyone to use. You download. I highly recommend this again if you are very curious to see how Pokemon is generated from a outside third-party software. So again, I'm only using this video as educational purposes only. I'm not trying to tell people how to gen or take advantage of the creators' programs because that's not the whole point. The whole point is just to basically inform my audience, which I hope the audience is very mature enough to do so themselves. All right, so here we are. I'm using a throwaway file just for educational purposes, and I have here a old file of Pokemon Violet, and it pretty much would tell me like your save file and what time is it when you first have the file saved at. So clearly we can see some of the Pokemon we have in our boxes here. I'm going to use this Fido, for example. So we're going to drag this Fido into the Pokemon window screen right here. And we're now in the main tab right now. So if you want to make any Pokemon shiny, it's right here. You click on the little star. As long as the Pokemon can be shiny naturally, you can make it shiny wherever you want. If you want to get rid of it shiny, you just simply click the reroll right there. If you want to change the species of the Pokemon, I really don't recommend this because then you're going to throw your entire data off. So let's say if I want to make this Flamigo, you're going to have this little triangle here. And this triangle basically means that, hey, your Pokemon's legality is illegal. You can't really do that. I highly recommend just having a spare Pokemon on the side. Like, for example, if I wanted a Mew, get a Mew from a random copy of a game or whatever, drag it in there. There's also multiple ways I'm going to show you guys how you can get mystery gift Pokemons that already have expired. So again, we're going to go back to this Fido right here. If you want to change the nickname of this Pokemon, you can. Obviously, just change it to, let's say, Play-Doh. You can have the nickname there. As long as it's checkmarked, that means the name could be there. Now, EXP and level. Let's say you want this Pokemon level 100. Highly recommend just doing this rather than inputting the EXP total number unless you know the number off the top of the head. You want to change the nature of this Pokemon. All right, cool. We're going to give this Jolly Nature. As you can see now, the legality checker is, as long as this check mark is essentially green, you're good to go. Held item. I'm going to give it leftovers. Again, it has to be an item that can be found in the game. Obviously, leftovers can be found in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, so why not? Then you have abilities. Yes, you can change the abilities of a Pokemon. Hidden abilities too. It will give you an error. But because there are items now that can change the abilities of Pokemon, aka ability patch, it's now all legal. Friendship, if you really care about friendship, but honestly, friendship doesn't really matter at this point anymore because return and frustration don't exist. And then you have the language of Pokemon where you caught it: English, Japanese, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Korean, Chinese, and I'm apologize for this. I think this is Cantonese. I'm not really sure about these two. I don't know why there's two variations, but I'm pretty sure one of them is Chinese. So apologies for my lack of foreign languages. You can check mark whether this Pokemon was hatched from an egg. Don't do that because if you do that, it's going to give you a lot of errors. not available for this Pokemon. So uncheck it, and then it's going to tell you, well, because you made it into an egg, it changed everything. So as long as you keep the status quo of the Pokemon, making sure everything's okay, you can revert back to the item, all that stuff, then you should be pretty good. And that's pretty much the main page or the main tab of the PKHeX. You can also give it infected Pokerus if you want to, but again, you gotta have you gotta be able to know knowledge of this. Now, I really again don't recommend using Pokerus because Pokerus is a very rare thing to get in Pokemon games, and even myself, someone who's been playing Pokemon for years, don't exactly know the data strains used for Pokerus, so I recommend not doing that. And there's really no point of Pokerus if you're actually trying to max out like every single level of this Pokemon and its IVs and EVs. So there you have it. So that's pretty much the main. Then we have the Met. Now, this is a tab that you don't really want to mess around with too much. I suggest just leaving it alone because honestly, a lot of the biggest issues with Pokemon illegality nowadays is where the Pokemon came from. So as long as you caught this Pokemon in-game like I did, just leave it as is. I highly recommend just leaving this alone. Just perfect just the way it is. But if you want to go into more detail, we got the origin game, where the game came from. The battle version, obviously there's no battle version. Where was the Met location? And it says South Province Area 1, I believe. And then you have the Pokeball. You can change the Pokeball. That's pretty much the biggest thing people would want to change. And as long as it's essentially a Pokeball it can be caught in, you should be good. So I'm going to change this to, for example, Love Ball. And again, if you want to do the check mark, it's legal. Then you have the Met date, the Met level, and the obedience level. Again, just leave that. But the biggest takeaway from this tab is essentially changing the Pokeball. As long as it's legal and you can clearly click on the Pokeball and an image of the Pokeballs will show up right here, you should be pretty good for the meantime. And even actually gives you a sheet of Pokeballs that it cannot be caught naturally. So if you click on one of these, it's going to be illegal. It's highlighted in red. The other ones are highlighted in green, and you can use those. That's actually pretty cool that they updated that in this recent wave. Now we have the stats. You want to make this Pokemon into Behemoth? Pretty simple. Change it to 31 IVs. 31 IVs is the max cap per stat, as long as it's legal, and you can actually do that. Now, the reason why it's legal is because there's a very, 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 very slim chance that you can catch a Pokemon that has perfect stats. And you can also breed Pokemon with perfect stats. The fact that this is legal means pretty much you can change the stats of any Pokemon you want. Now for IVs. Let's say I want max IVs. I'm going to give it 252. Each stat can have 252. So I'll have max speed and then max, let's go with max HP. But, however, there is a cap of a total amount of EVs you can give to a Pokemon. And that is 510. So the next one would be, let's say, 6. And you can clearly see that you're changing the overall stats value of a Pokemon. So if I make this level 100, and we're going to do that on the main page, or tab I should say, we're going to go over to the stats and you can see now the true level 100 stats of a Fido with max IVs and max EVs, hitting the cap. Again, you can only max out 2 stats with putting a sprinkle of 6 on another stat. And obviously you can change the cap as well, but if you do that, it's going to give you an illegal, it's going to give you a legal mark. Highly, highly recommend not using Pokemon with illegality issues online because it's just simply not going to work. So we're going to put this back to 6. So 510, EVs is the max. Tera type, yes, you can catch Pokemon with their original Tera typing. You can change it, but again, what's the whole point in changing the original Tera typing when there's an override Tera type, aka when you are essentially trading in the shards? So I want to make this, let's say, this Pokemon hates steel type, so let's say if we do electric, for example. You can override the original Tera typing by just giving the secondary Tera typing of electric, and then once this Pokemon is exported into your game, it's going to be Tera electric. So again, always check your work. Very important. Just click on the check mark to see if it actually is legal. You can also randomize your IVs and EVs, which is pretty cool. Sometimes randomizing IVs will give you more legitimacy, but again, that's up to you. Next up we got is moves. As long as a Pokemon can learn the actual moves, which I'm going to show you right here, the ones in green basically means it can learn all of these moves. The other moves, not so much. So you want to give it Excel Rock, it's just not going to work. It's going to give you that red flag. If you want to give it, let's say, Dazzling Gleam, it's going to work. However, sometimes you're going to have a little, check mark here, and it's like, what the hell? I thought this Pokemon can learn this move. Yes, it can. But you got to remember, Pokemon can also learn moves via TRs and TMs. So we're going to go to the relearn moves here, or relearn flags, I should say. And you're going to essentially pull down this list of all the TRs that a Pokemon can learn in this game. So we're going to go all the way down, and we're going to look for Dazzling Gleam, because again, this Pokemon cannot learn it naturally. I see Dazzling Gleam as TR number 79. So I'm going to check this right here. I'm going to hit save, and now it's legal. You can also change the PP ups of the move. It's capped out at 3, so that way you can have max PP on every single move. Highly recommend it for those of you who don't have any ways of farming PP ups or PP maxes, because those items are somewhat hard to come by. You can also relearn moves, but again, don't really recommend this because as you export this Pokemon into the game, it's going to naturally relearn the moves as if, from level 100. So wouldn't have really complicated issues there. Next up we have is cosmetics. I'm going to have to stress this out quite a bit. A lot of the Pokemon's legality is predicated on the essence of just leaving, how do I explain this? Kind of leaving the genetic makeup of a gen Pokemon alone. As long as you just change the stats, the moves, the shininess of a Pokemon, its items, and its nickname, you're fine. Everything else, if you change one thing, it might be a little more complicated, and it can easily be distinctively found out through the, either someone else who's using PKHeX or the game itself. And again, we don't want you guys getting caught with illegal Pokemon, because that's the whole point. So now we have here the sizing of a Pokemon. Again, just use the bases. Don't change this stuff. Just leave it as is. You got ribbons. If you're really about that life and you want to give it like a Paladin Champion max, it'll definitely highlight the ribbons in green that it can definitely have. Again, you can check mark it. If you give it an illegal ribbon, aka a ribbon that cannot be found in game, you're going to get red flagged. Then you got memories. Memories is kind of interesting. I'm not really too fond of using memories for a Pokemon. You can change them if you want, but again, it's just one of those things where you just leave it alone. It's fine just the way it is. Now, when it comes to memories, I've noticed that a lot of illegal Pokemon tend to have their memories changed for whatever reason. Again, that's one of the easiest flags that can be marked up there. And again, just leave it alone. Just leave it as is. Then you got contest stats, but there are no contests, so don't try to fix that. Last but not least, we got trainer information, OT, and miscellaneous. You got a home tracker ID. Obviously, this Pokemon hasn't been transferred to Pokemon Home, so it doesn't have a unique ID. You have an encryption. Wow, I cannot speak today. Encryption constant that basically IDs Pokemon from clones. So if you were trying to say, for example, cloning this Pokemon right here, the encryption constant is the same. If you reroll and you add this Pokemon right there, that means these Pokemon are now two completely different ones. They have the same stats, same everything, but their constants are completely different. And this actually kind of bypasses duplication bans, kind of like the one in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So now you have the trainer information of where it came from, the SID, you got the TID, you got the OT of the Pokemon trainer that you got it from. You got the current handler, which is the HT right there. It'll give my information right here, my OT and language. The biggest issue that I've seen with the handling information of Pokemon is that the nickname of the original trainer is just too long. Now, obviously, if I did this, it's still legal because obviously you can get in this game with that big of a name. But in older games, if you recall, the names couldn't be that big. So if you give it much more larger name, it's going to be flagged as illegal. And there you have it. That's pretty much the basis of PKHeX. Now, let's say I want a mystery gift Pokemon. Well, look no further than using tools here. So you go, essentially go to tools, you would go to data, then you can go to mystery gift. And this will give you, I'm pretty sure the screen is too small for this, but essentially it will give you every single mystery gift. I kid you not. Every single mystery gift in the history of Pokemon video games, starting from the very first mystery gift ever made, and I believe that was in Generation 1 because of technically Mew is a mystery gift in itself, all the way to the most recent mystery gift that just got distributed, which was the shiny Grimmsnarl. And you can clearly see like the more Generation 9 Pokemon with their respective Cherish Balls. A lot of mystery gift Pokemon are very unique because they tend to have Cherish Balls or just original trainer names that do not exist naturally. So if you want to just copy and paste a Pokemon, let's say you want to get this Vivillon, that the Pokeball one. I know a lot of people want that. You just simply right click and just view. You get out of here, and there you go. You have the Vivillon here. You can just put it in your box, and voila. If you want to check its stats to see what it looks like, it came from Alpha Sapphire, has a Cherish Ball, the stats, the moves, cosmetics. Now, it will have the classic ribbon because technically a lot of mystery gift Pokemon tend to have ribbons, whether it's classic or, you know, whatever it is, based on what Pokemon gives them. There you have it. Then you have the OT, the original trainer information, where this Pokemon came from, and there you have it. Just that simple. If you want to have a Pokemon, let's say you knocked out a legendary Pokemon and you cannot get him back and you want to make sure you have it in your party, look no further than having the encounter database. The encounter database allows you to get whatever Pokemon you can find in the game. So let's say, for example, I'm going to get Chiwu, right? I'm going to search it. There's a Chiwu right there. It can be found in both Scarlet and Violet. It's level 60, so I'm going to right click here. It's going to show up on my Pokemon editing page right here, and I just drag it in here, and voila. Very well. Now let's say you want to edit a Pokemon that's already in your box. So let's look at this Mega Diancie, for example. All you got to do is just drag this Pokemon into this little window right here. You can edit, you know, whatever, the stats, the moves, and all that stuff. And one thing I forgot to mention, a Pokemon that has their stats bottle capped, it will be in green and you won't be able to change it. If you try to change it, it's going to tell you something weird. You can't hyper train a perfect IV. So just keep those IVs as is. And then we also have something pretty cool. There's a Pokemon Showdown import. So obviously I don't have any clipboard stuff right here. So let's say I want to grab a Pokemon from Pokemon Showdown. I'm going to show it very quickly. So I'm going to go to Showdown right here. I'm going to Team Builder. You probably can't see this because the window's very small, but just pretend I'm going to Pokemon Showdown. I'm going to grab this Sneasler, this shiny Sneasler here. So I'm going to copy and, you know, paste the Team Builder info. We're going to get out of here. I'm going to minimize this. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import set from clipboard. If you want to import this Pokemon, you can. However, I highly recommend using a Pokemon as a basis of your work. So what I mean by that is, let's say I already have a Sneasler here and I'm going to showcase it right here. I'm just going to click here on view. If you try to say, for example, let's say use a routes, right? And you're trying to import a Showdown set for Sneasler, it's not going to work because essentially you're using the different typings and all that stuff. A lot of your information is going to be completely off. But it's legal because the only problem you're going to have, again, is the Tera typing. What I highly recommend you doing is essentially, if you already have a Pokemon that is used as a template for it, then you just simply override it by using Showdown. And there you go. Now I have my Sneasler ready to go. All right. And then let's see here. Again, I think the most valuable tool of PKHeX is essentially the mystery gift, because now you have access to every single mystery gift that's ever existed, and it's just incredible. Another thing, one of the biggest limitations, of course, using PKHeX is trying to generate a Pokemon that does not exist in the current state of the game. So, for example, Infernape is not available in Scarlet and Violet. So, if you try to essentially import Infernape, it's just not going to work. Just, again, stick with the legality realm of the game and you'll be pretty much okay. And so there you have it. I kind of showed you what you can do with PKHeX. And then I'm just going to show you another 3 tabs right here. So you can obviously, you can try to edit Pokemon from your party if that works best for you. And it gets the same process and procedures from going through all the tabs. There's also other, because there's obviously different Pokemon that can be fused, and there's the Miraidon that you caught from the story. Then you have the save file. Pretty much you can edit your box layout. You can edit the amount of items you have in each of your bags. The only thing I would say for key items, of course, is just don't abuse it. Just try to get the items naturally. It's not that hard. And then the Pokedex, you can check off all the Pokemon that you've seen, captured, all used, shiny, male and female, and languages. Pretty cool. Then you can manipulate raids, but this is kind of out of my expertise. I would recommend using a search engine to see how you can manipulate raids. I wouldn't recommend this because, again, this information is just too volatile for me. Then you got the 7-star raids information. It will tell you whether or not a 7-star raid has been captured already in the game. And then you got your trainer information that you can basically edit your name, your SID, TID, your amount of money, LP, the copy of the game, or the version I should say, and the amount of hours. Again, I don't recommend changing all this stuff. The money is probably the easiest thing you can change. Don't change your name. Don't change the gender of your actual player. Don't change the version, because that's probably one of the easiest ways you can get caught and banned from Nintendo. Then you got miscellaneous stuff, like example, where are you in the map of the game? You can unlock all the TM recipes, bike upgrades, fly locations, all that sort of stuff. Then you got images. That's basically the image that I use to capture in game while I'm preparing for like any battles. This will probably be the image that will show up. So there you have it. That's pretty much the basis of PKHeX. Again, unfortunately, I can't really show you how to extract your save file into PKHeX, but if you use a third-party software, aka Atmosphere or Edison, I believe Edison is the most valuable and probably the most reliable when it comes to extracting save file from Nintendo Switch SD card. If you know how to do that, you're pretty much good to go, and just simply go to File and then open a file from what you extracted from your Nintendo Switch, and there you have it. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to let me know down below in the comment section. I hope this guide kind of helps out and see how Pokemon could become legal. And it's pretty hard to distinguish, nowadays a Pokemon that's been gen versus a Pokemon that's been bred and EV trained and all that stuff. So there you have it. It's your boy Franklin signing out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.